Hey, I'm Anaïs Mitchell, and I'm the writer of Hadestown. I'm going to be the next guest on Musical World with your host, Frans. Something like this.
Kijk nou eens naast wie ik zit. Een Tony Award winnares. Nu hebben wij al vaker met Tony winnaars gesproken. Bettina Miller bijvoorbeeld van Sister Act en Pippin. John Lloyd Young, Frankie Valli in Jersey Boys. Maar vandaag is wel heel speciaal, want de dame naast mij is de auteur van de musical die Carré komende zomer gaat brengen in de oorspronkelijke taal. Hadestown, 8 Tony Awards. Anaïs, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Talking about that Tony, where is your Tony right now?
My statue is at my home in Vermont, which is a small state in New England. So it's like in my office somewhere.
Do you think awards are important?
You know, we worked on this show for so long before we landed on Broadway. The Tonys, the awards, it really was just the icing on the cake. And the fact that we landed on Broadway in the first place was a miracle. And then to win those Tonys, it felt like a beautiful, kind of very gratifying moment for the whole company. And I think, you know, are those things important? Yes and no. Like, the beautiful thing was that we came to the attention of a lot of people, you know, because those things are televised, and so then folks bought tickets. My attention,
for instance.
Yeah. And that felt like we'd all worked so hard on this thing, and so it was going to have a chance at, like, longevity and have a chance for more people to come and see it.
Follow that dollar for a long way down, far away from the poorhouse door. Either get to hell or to Hadestown. Ain't no difference anymore. Way down, Hadestown, what's your part? Way down under the ground.
The first inkling of Hadestown was made by you around 2006. What was your intention to write those songs in that period? Making a musical already, or a concept album?
Yeah, good question. Right, it was 2006, and I was just embarking on like a singer-songwriter life. I was driving from one gig to another, and I was in my car driving when the melody and some lyrics from that song, Wait For Me, kind of just dropped into my lap. That was the very first thing, and it felt kind of mysterious, but I was sort of hungry to try to tell a long-form story with songs. You know, I love lyrics, I love balladry, and I love storytelling in songs, and I thought it would be really fun, you know, to try to make write a song cycle where you had to hear the whole piece in order to get the full effect. And I guess the myth found me more than I found it. I just, I was young, I was idealistic, I was naive, and I was a creative person, and I was coming out of school into the world the way that the world was. And I think, like, that was the story of Orpheus. You know, he's a young idealist who believes if he can write something beautiful enough, maybe he could change the rules of the world. And so
and that was the same thing you thought at that age? Yeah,
like at that age, I think I really identified with him and his mission, and that was that was my way into the story. And then, you know, fast forward, I worked on it for so long. I'm much older than that now. And I've had a chance to identify with other characters, like the older characters, you know, who have seen the way the world is, and have made their compromises and tried to figure out how to live within it.
What I wanted was to fall asleep, to close my eyes and disappear, like a petal on a stream, a feather on the air.
Talking about Orpheus, Greek mythology. When I look around myself during these days, I don't see anyone of my peer group or outside my peer group that is interested in ancient Greek themes. Were you a fan of Greek mythology?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I'm not like a classics person. It's not like I had studied it.
Me neither.
Yeah, but I always responded to it. And I remembered the first time I encountered the Orpheus and Eurydice story was in a children's illustrated book.
Oh, not through Greek literature, but through a children's book.
It was a children's
That's interesting.
book. Yeah, and then it's funny because I feel like I've absorbed so much Greek mythology, and I'm not sure how it happened. It's almost like the Bible, like the Old Testament, where you somehow know the stories even if you never actually read it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
There's actually a beautiful, do you remember that Coen Brothers movie that was kind of based on the Odyssey? Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
It had like all this imagery that came from the Odyssey, and one of those guys said like he had never read the Odyssey. It just is, the imagery has entered, you know, the culture, and so you kind of, everyone knows who the Cyclops is. Like everyone knows about Scylla and Charybdis. Everyone knows about the sirens, you know, and you don't have to have read it to know.
Lily white and poppy red, I trembled when you laid me out. You won't feel a thing, he said, when you go down. Nothing gonna wake you now.
What was your connection to the musical genre? Did you know Mamma Mia or Miss Saigon?
You know, I wasn't a theater kid. Like, I wasn't one of those kids who knows all the musicals. But when I started working on this show, I started to try to, like, educate myself. And there are shows that I fell in love with. I mean, and, you know, some of them I saw earlier on, like Les Miserables is my favorite of all time.
Oh, really? Les Mis?
Yeah, I love it. I met Schoenberg, the
Claude Michel.
Claude Michel, the composer, and that I rarely have been starstruck in my life, but when I met him, I really was, because I'm so in love with those melodies. I tend to love, like, sung-through musicals, you know. I love Hamilton.
So I noticed.
Yeah.
Listening to, watching Hadestown.
Yeah, right. I love Hamilton, and I love Les Mis. I do love Miss Saigon, and I love Sweeney Todd. And there's just something about the unbroken spell of music that I'll respond to. So I think that's why I wanted Hadestown to feel like that.
You had some success. When started the idea of bringing it to a larger audience?
So the show started as this community DIY theater project in Vermont.
DIY, do it yourself?
Do it yourself, yeah. Like I self-produced it. You know, it was there was no one really. It wasn't like we had permission from someone to do it. We just put some tickets on sale, and then and then a few years later, I made that studio record, which came out in 2010, and that was a moment where I think the show found a wider audience because the music was able to travel around, and there were some sort of more famous guest singers on that record. Then I moved to New York City. Years went by. I wanted to develop it into a full-length piece of music theater, but it took a while to figure out who the partners were for that. And then I found Rachel Chavkin, the director, Mara Isaacs and Dale Franzen, our original lead producers. And it just was a years-long glacial process of, you know, okay, we got off Broadway, incredible, like, should we try for Canada? Like, yes, let's go to Canada. Should we try London? Should we try Broadway? You know, and each step of the way the show changed and became like a fuller version of itself, and now here we are coming to Amsterdam.
Yes.
It's a total miracle. It's an extraordinarily collaborative art form.
Yes.
Like, you can't do it without any of the, you know, all of those people.
But still, you can do without all those people. But was it easy for you to let go of?
Well, I had to.
Oh, you had to.
I had to when we were starting. You know, when we opened on Broadway, there was a moment where I really had to just put the pencil down, and you know, I remember a moment right around when that happened where I was jogging in the early morning past the theater, and I saw these young people that were dressed up as our characters, and they were waiting to get rush tickets, and
with red carnations and guitars.
I don't know. Yeah, they were all in costume, and I thought, this isn't mine at all. Do you know, this is big, so much bigger than.
And that felt okay with you?
Yeah, it does. It does feel a bit like a grown child now that's out running around the world, and you're like, really?
Nice metaphor.
Like, yeah. I don't have to, like, you know, cut your grapes in half anymore. Like, you know, you actually have your own apartment and your own identity, and yeah, it's a miracle.
Lay their fruit upon the ground, the almond and the apple, and the sugar from the maple, and the trees are gonna lay the wood table.
I saw that this project has primarily women at the helm. Can women at the helm make things happen right now in Broadway?
Yeah, you know, it's the numbers are not good, like for Broadway, you know, in terms of, I'd say, like, in the music world, it feels like there's more parity in terms of, you know, as a female singer-songwriter, I didn't feel like I was a minority. Like, you know, there's a lot of women writing songs. But on Broadway, it's the number of women that are composers, book writers, directors, and producers. It's just much smaller. So it does feel like it's a world that has a ways to go. This show, we didn't set out for it to have, you know, to be female-led. It just kind of happened that way. It happened that way. Yeah, and it was very powerful, actually, for me to have a deep collaboration with Rachel over a course of years and watch her way of being a leader in a room as a woman. Also, our two lead producers, Mara Isaacs and Dale Franzen, had never brought a show to Broadway before. So everyone was bringing kind of like a Zen mind, beginner's mind, sort of a you know, new kid energy to the project. And it felt really gratifying that we were able to kind of trust each other's instincts, and say, like, we can do this. We haven't done this before, but we're going to do it.
Down there is a bunch of stiffs. Brother, I'll be bored to death. Gonna have to import some stuff just to entertain myself. Give me morphine in a tin. Give me a crate of the fruit of the vine. Takes a lot of medicine to make it through the winter time. Way down Hadestown, way down under the ground.
I would love to think that if I made another musical, it wouldn't take this long. But I think that all of the years that we put in were necessary and beneficial for it. It's like sometimes I think people maybe rush a process of trying to get something up on stage because it's, you know, you want to get it up there. But for us, it just took a long time to allow it to grow into what it wanted to become. And I think it was sort of it feels like all of that time was worth it because we were constructing something sturdy enough that it could then survive on its own, and that other people could make it their own.
Hadestown has been in quite a few theaters. What do you think of this room?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this theater. It's big. It's bigger, I think, than any other theater we've done.
Really?
Maybe Korea. I didn't go to Korea, but I think that might have been a big one. But it's big, but it feels intimate because it's round, which I love. And I also love that it's round because it feels Greek. It feels like an amphitheater. And actually, when we did this show off-Broadway at the New York Theater Workshop in 2016, our space was round, and then we had to sort of square it up for the bigger theater. So I think it's going to feel really good to return to the amphitheater, which feels like sort of a community gathering space, right? Like a storytelling around a tree.
Well, thank you, Anaïs.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, way down Hadestown, way down to the ground. Way down Hadestown, way down to the ground. Way down to the ground. Way